The following program does not offer personal medical advice. Please consult your doctor before using any treatment or product we cover. Welcome to GoToHealth Media with your host, Jonathan Marks. We provide a welcoming environment where experts educate you on important health topics, answer your questions, and provide information from which you can benefit in consultation with your doctor. You can visit and subscribe to the show at gotohealthmedia.com. And now, here is Jonathan Marks. Hey everyone, this is Jonathan Marks. Welcome back to another show of GoToHealth. I'm so excited when I get to interview such brilliant and informative people in the healthcare space. And today I have the honor of interviewing a woman who's become a good friend of mine. Her name is Patricia Raskin, and she talks about and teaches about positive aging. And many of us obviously are getting up there in years. And so the question is, how can we age positively? So we'll be discussing that in this interview today. Patricia Raskin, and it's R-A-S-K-I-N. Patricia Raskin is the host of the Patricia Raskin Show. She's a nationally recognized multimedia radio talk show and podcast host and award-winning radio producer, business owner, and leader. For 4 decades, Patricia has been a pioneer and trailblazer for positive media messaging through her work as trainer and media producer and host, and she has interviewed over 5,000 guest experts in her career. She coaches and provides consultation to clients who want to create or improve their own podcasts. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, listen up, because we'll be talking about how to do that and how Patricia might be able to help you. Her programs focus on positive living, and they've aired on Fox, PBS, NPR, and the Cumulus Affiliate Network. And her radio program and podcast is currently heard on Voice America and Spotify. She has a master's degree in counseling and is a certified coach. She's the author of 2 books, Success, Your Dream and You, and Pathfinding, 7 Principles for Positive Living. She presents wellness and motivational workshops, seminars, and keynote talks for organizations and corporations and businesses nationally. And you can find her services at patriciaraskin.com. That's R-A-S-K-I-N, Patricia Raskin. Welcome to the show, Patricia. How are you?
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Great to be here.
Good. So tell us, what is positive aging? I really haven't heard that term before. What do you mean when you say that? I've heard about healthy aging. What do we mean when we say positive aging?
Well, I think positive aging is really positive living. We're just older. It's the same thing. The difference is that our bodies may work a little differently. There are certain processes in our bodies that slow down as we get older. But certainly our minds can stay active. We may not hear quite as well or walk quite as fast or, see what we did when we were 20 years ago in terms of our eyesight.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't have to slow us down, and we can do amazing things. And in fact, I think we can do more in many cases because we have the experience and the wisdom that we've gained over the years.
Mm-hmm. And when did you first begin to think about talking with the aging population? What motivated you to do that?
Well, I started doing positive living over 4 decades, and positive aging actually just evolved as I got older. As I got older, I started moving into, okay, well, now let's look at what the next stage of life is going to be like, and who are the experts that I can interview who are going through this transition and life change and new phase of living.
Good. And you found plenty of people to interview on this topic, I assume.
Yeah, I did about 2 years ago, I did a series called Positive Aging for Rhode Island PBS. I co-produced it with them, and it aired on podcast networks, Spotify. And I've also done a healthy aging series for a local hospital in Massachusetts called South Coast Health.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing a lot of programs and webinars and seminars on aging healthfully for corporations. So I combine the teaching and training, that's my background, with the media work.
Got it. So let's get into this in a little bit more detail. What are the keys to positive aging? What do you mean when we say that, and how can we engage that in our own lives?
Yeah, I think there are several keys, and the keys I'm going to mention are the exact same keys I would mention if you were 30 or 40 years old.
Ah.
The difference is that I think you have to pay more attention when you get older. It's like having an older car. You're going to take care of it more, make sure that you preserve it, and so you pay more attention to it. So the main ones are all the ones that we know, Jonathan, that we hear every single day. First of all is exercise. Absolutely critical, not just for the body, but for the mind. There's been a lot of science research on the brain and exercise to show that it makes such a difference in our happiness factor, in our memory factor, as well as what it does for our body. Okay, so exercise is absolutely key, and not just exercise, but movement. I think the next one is nutrition, and there are many theories about that. I mean, studies have shown in the blue zones, and I interviewed Dan Buettner, who wrote the blue zones, and he just did a documentary where he went to the 5 places on the planet where people are living the longest and staying the healthiest. And one of the things that he found is most of them eat a plant-based diet. And that doesn't mean we all have to do that, but leaning more toward the plant-based. And also not eating processed foods and eating foods more that are locally grown or off the land or organic. But certainly, and understanding your own preferences. You know, some people have gluten allergies, some people have dairy allergies, some people want to do a low carb program. It depends upon how your body feels. So I think the second one is nutrition. The third one is definitely sleep, and that's obviously very underrated. People, you know, brag when they get 2 hours of sleep, and I'm not sure that's such a great thing to brag about because it catches up with you. Because when you're sleeping, you are rejuvenating, you're restoring that homeostasis in the body. So I think that sleep is absolutely key, 7 to 9 hours a night. And if you're having trouble sleeping or you're having trouble breathing when you're sleeping, see an otolaryngologist, an ear, nose, throat specialist, you know, somebody who can really look at this and test you. And there are so many sleep medicine clinics today with specialists who are MDs in sleep medicine. So that's another one. So far we've talked about exercise and nutrition and sleep. Another really big one is support network. You know, as we get older, unless we're living as we did 100 years ago with our families and our grandchildren and our children, which most of us are not, we're more isolated. And so, and COVID didn't help that.
Yeah.
So I think really having a support network, and not just any network, but a network of people who positively support you, who are not dragging you down, who are not negative. I think that's really important because if we keep looking at the absolutes, always, never, can't, can, won't, will, yes, no, there's no room for growth. There's no room for growth because there's nothing else you can do. But when you look at the gray areas and you look at, I mean, there are some things that are always and never, but not that many. So what is it that we can do to really look at possibility thinking? And I've devoted my life to doing that with the people that I interview. So another one that I didn't mention is learning new things, because that's helping the mind. You know, and if you read the book by Daniel Amen, who I've also interviewed, who wrote Memory Rescue, he'll tell you there are many things you can do to keep an active mind as we get older. We don't have to get dementia. We don't have to get Alzheimer's. And so many people think that's going to happen naturally, and it doesn't have to. Do crossword puzzles, learn a new language, travel to a new place, drive down a new road you've never driven down. Keep working on the computer. That keeps me going because there's always a glitch or always something you have to figure out. Any of these things that I'm saying to you at our age, over 65 or 70, I could say to somebody 30 or 40 or 50. So it's so active, so important to stay active mentally and physically and also spiritually, to believe in something. You know, if it isn't God, it's a higher power, but something that you believe in that keeps you going, that gives you that hope. Because without hope, we can't move. If you talk to Holocaust survivors, what got them through? And if you talked, I think hope is really a big one. And before I finish that sentence, the book is Man's Search for Meaning, and the author is Viktor Frankl. And what kept him going was really thinking about his wife and seeing the love that he had for her. And also just, really believing that there was something else.
Mhm.
But I think that that's really, those things are important.
That's a fabulous list. Can I go back through them? And I want to talk about each one a little bit more individually. Is that okay?
Sure.
So you talked first about exercise or movement. And the first thing that came to my mind is basically blood flow and circulation. And I don't know what other insights you have about that, but simply movement and exercise gets your blood flowing and circulation going, and your blood bringing new nutrients to all your organs in your brain to keep things
Absolutely.
working well. And if you're just sitting there and sedentary, you just don't get that kind of circulation. Can you say more about that, or what else you've learned about the benefits of movement and exercise?
Well, I think it also prevents illness because, as you say, we're keeping our organs healthy. And
Mhm.
when we don't, then that's when the stress happens, that's the other thing, is when we have the stress that the body turns from adrenaline to cortisol, and we
Yes.
have that, that's when the organs become diseased. So I think activity is very important. And even when you have joint issues, arthritis, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen people with severe, x-rays on their joints,
Mm.
and they keep moving, and, they might get some relief from some ointments or creams or some anti-inflammatories, but it's really important not only to keep moving, Jonathan, but it's the attitude.
Mm.
I've got to tell you, it's the attitude.
Mm.
I mean, you can say this, and if I look at you and say, yeah, well, that's nice, but I really don't feel like moving. I'd rather watch TV all day.
Mhm.
It's not going to happen. So you have to become a believer, and this is not a one-off. This is a way of life. And we all have things we live with. We all have maybe, emotional issues that we deal with, physical issues, family issues, and it's how do you work through them and keep that attitude moving? I mean, I think it's very much, yes, you must do the physical work, but you also need to believe that there is possibility.
Mm.
You need to be able to see it.
Thank you for that deeper look. I also wanted to talk about nutrition, and I just wanted to share with the group, and then you can comment on this as well, Patricia. I worked on a project for 5 years called New Brain Nutrition, and it was a group of 100 scientists in Europe, and they were doing clinical studies on how your nutrition affects your mental health, how your nutrition and your lifestyle affect your mental health. What they were studying was how the vagus nerve is really this amazing communication system between your gut and your brain. It's an immediate communication system. And what you eat creates chemicals and nutrients that your brain needs for good health. And without these nutrients they're really not part of your body or what your body produces, but it's produced because you are eating good and healthy food. And when you eat good and healthy food, your brain gets the nutrients it needs, and it can actually affect your mental health. So between exercise and good nutrition, that's what gets affected in your body. And this is now proven with clinical studies. And one of the studies they did was on the Mediterranean diet and how healthy that is for you. It's mostly a very little meat, a lot of fish, a lot of vegetables, fruits, and just a very, very healthy diet that's found to be reducing a lot of the lifestyle diseases that we're suffering, such as heart disease and high cholesterol and diabetes and the rest. Can you say more about that from your knowledge and interviews you've done?
Yeah, well, I think you said it all. I mean, I've interviewed so many authors that have all different kinds of theories. I mean, Dr. Neil Barnard, he wrote the book about the cheese trap, and then he just wrote another book about how he really believes in his study that certain foods can actually heal you from disease. So again, some people eat cheese. You may not believe this, but he did say that when he was helping people clinically to lose weight, the hardest thing for them to give up was cheese. And I actually can understand that. I mean, I
I
understand
can
that
too.
personally. I think sugar is another one, but he talked about certain foods that really are so healing, like blueberries, and certain vegetables. So, and then he had a whole recipe, a book, a whole cookbook of things that you could make. So, there's a lot of truth to that. But
Mhm.
again, it becomes a way of life, and it's something that you have to believe and want to believe. So when you believe it, it's not such a sacrifice. It's not like, oh, I have to give that up. Oh, I don't want. It's, yeah, I'm going to give that up and look what I'm going to gain.
Yeah.
So again, and the other thing I would say about this, Jonathan, that I think is very helpful is if you really want something in your life, and this is what I've done in my work, go find those people who are doing it and then copy them.
Mm.
Find the role models. That's the reason I started doing this type of media work decades ago, because I wanted to see those role models. And we don't always show the positive, we show a lot of the negative. We're showing more of the positive now, we're showing more about health now. But I think, finding those people that really are making a difference and modeling them, copying them, or adapting what they do to what you do.
Got it. Good. So I want to move on now. The other thing you mentioned was a support network. And tell me more about that, because I know as we get older, it can be easier, just as you say, to sit at home and do nothing and watch TV all day. Tell me more about a support network and why that's so important.
Yeah, there's a theory out there that says that we we're made up of the 5 people we're closest to. That tells us a lot about ourselves.
Hmm.
And so I think at any age, I think it's really important to find those people who inspire you. I also think it's important to work intergenerationally, to work with people who are much younger. I work with college students, and every semester, so every quarter, I have a new student. And I can't tell you how much they motivate me, they inspire me. I just have so much energy when I'm around them, and they respect me for my wisdom and knowledge. And they're also little wizards on the technology piece.
Right.
And it's just wonderful to watch. So I think that part of this support network is involved in being around the right people of all ages and stages, and finding things and watching things that inspire you, that bring you joy. Now, I'm not saying to be unrealistic and not to face what's in front of you, but always look at what's the gift and what's the blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
from this hardship, what's the blessing? What am
Got
I
it.
learning here?
May I ask what kind of work you do with college students, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, they're my interns for my work.
Ah,
So basically what they do is my newsletters, they do my PowerPoints, they help me post on social media, they
great.
help me research, they help me listen to programs and edit them. They're very good.
Good. One of the things that came to mind when we were talking about that is just get out there and volunteering. I mean, there's so many organizations that need help and need
Yes,
volunteers.
absolutely.
Find something you like and volunteer with an organization that does that. Now,
Yeah.
you also mentioned spirituality,
Yeah.
and that being another key aspect of positive aging. Can you say more what you mean when you say spirituality or a higher power or
Yeah.
God?
Well, it's interesting. I've had people in my life who are more agnostic, if you will. And I have found that they're not as positive or fulfilled as those people who have a spiritual base, because the spiritual base gives you the hope. You believe in something greater than yourself,
Mhm.
and you believe that no matter what happens, somehow you're going to be protected because you are making a difference. And I think if you're doing the right things, I think if you're making a difference and you're doing the right things, that means something to you and other people. I think that really tells the story. I mean, I'm faith-based. Some people are very faith-based, other people are not. But I
Mhm.
think it's all about believing in something that's greater than ourselves. There's
Yes.
greater forces out there that really can guide us.
Yes. You know, we're really made of different parts, and people sometimes forget about that spiritual part, that
Yeah,
connection with something bigger than ourselves. And if we don't have that, we're just totally focused on us and our ego and what's good for us, what's bad for us. Is somebody in our way? Is somebody annoying us? But if you really have a belief in a higher power, or a God of some kind, whoever it is you believe in, there's something bigger than yourself. And it can remind you on a daily basis that it's not all about you. You're just part of a piece of a huge world. Let's say a little bit more about the importance of learning.
Yeah, I think, again, learning something new. I mean, what keeps me really going is the work that I do, the interviews, the podcasts, keeping my own business, getting out there. I mean, that's what keeps us alive. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories, I have, of people who were very, very active and retired and did nothing. And then they got sick. And some of them, passed within a few years. So I do think that it's all about activity, and it's not about the number. It's not about the chronological age. We're living longer. We have all these medical breakthroughs that are coming in, and I interview those authors like Michael Roizen, The Age Reboot, fantastic. And the technology breakthroughs where we can help older adults at any age that maybe have mobility issues or other issues, cognitive issues, with all kinds of electronic, technical, there are robots, there are sensors, there are devices that really help to make it easier for us that we can use.
Good. So we've been talking with Patricia Raskin about positive aging. We'll be back after a couple of messages, but I just wanted to thank you, Patricia, for being here to talk about positive aging. And what I want to talk about in our next segment is kind of your background and how you got into this and your experiences. So stick around to learn about how Patricia got into all this, where the genesis of it's from. We'll be back in a couple of minutes after these messages. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned.
GoToHealth Media wants to interview your healthcare organization in depth for 1 hour. Our primary mission is to help healthcare organizations like yours get your word out. That fulfills our secondary mission, which is to educate the public about the best healthcare alternatives for them. Who wants to interview you in depth for an hour? We do. At GoToHealth, we take that 1 hour interview and do more with it than your leftover turkey did after Thanksgiving. We publish the full interview on YouTube and 8 podcast networks. We create video shorts and post them on YouTube and our social media sites. You take those same videos and post them on your website and social media. We do keyword research and create content from your interview to place in blogs and social media posts, tagging you. We create a press release that puts your web address on more than 350 news websites. All this from one simple interview. Our efficiency and success at social media makes this affordable. We can do this once, or we have a 6-month program where we repeat the cycle. Who else will do this kind of marketing for you? GoToHealth Media will. Schedule a no-cost consult with us today at gotohealthmedia.com.
Welcome back to GoToHealth Media. This is Jonathan Marks, your host. Thanks for being with us. We're talking today with Patricia Raskin, who has the Patricia Raskin Show. It's on a number of podcast networks on Voice America, and she talks about positive media messaging. And today we're talking about positive aging. So in our first segment, we really talked about Patricia's description of positive aging. What I wanted to find out in this segment was how you got into this. Patricia, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today. I always find that fascinating, and I know our audiences can find it inspiring.
Yeah, it's kind of a circuitous route, if you will. It's not what I expected. So I grew up in a traditional family and went to college, and I was a teacher and a guidance counselor. So I got my degree. I taught for 4 years. I got my master's degree, and then I was a guidance counselor. And somehow I've just always been ahead of my time. I've been a pioneer without really trying. It's just kind of happened for me that way, particularly with health and wellness. I was thinking about it, at a very young age. So to answer your question, I remember walking around town. I was a guidance counselor at that point, and someone said to me, cable television is just starting in our community. And this is dating me, but this is, decades ago, and it was just beginning. And I said, really? And they said, you could go down there and do your own program. I said, really? I said, I think I'm going to call them tomorrow and I'm going to tell them that I would like to do a show on positive people. I mean, it was like just like I'd be talking to you.
Hmm.
So I called the station. I told them my idea, and they said, that's a great idea. Come on down and do it. And I said, what? It's like, what? I mean, I've never done this before. Now, I had been a child singer. I sang a lot in choirs. I came from a very talented musical family with a mother who was a pianist, two baby grand pianos in the living room, which I thought was normal, which wasn't. I had a brother who played. So it was music, music, music everywhere, and dancing. Dancing, dancing, ballet, and dancing, dancing, and singing, and duets, and blah, 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 constant. So I was used to that. So it was easier for me to make that decision to do something like this because I kind of had that performance streak from my background. So that was the very, very beginning. And it was in a small town in North Shore of Massachusetts. And from there, I did more cable TV. And then I moved on and started doing programs on network television and network radio.
Hmm.
And when I did my first program on network television, I had a public affairs show on Fox. And I remember I went into the manager, who's still my friend today. And I said to her, I want to do this show. I said, I believe in this. I really think people need to see role models. And she said to me later, you were so convincing and you had such a passion about this. I said, okay. For years, I did a lot of this. I also did training, which I still do, and wrote books and the other parts of my work, and some event planning sprinkled in there because of my communication skills and organization skills. But then when I relocated, I had lived in the South for a while and I came back to my New England roots. I had an opportunity to do another radio show here because I had had a radio show on broadcast radio and I had done some things for PBS. I had done some documentaries, and to exemplify the pioneering spirit, I did a TV documentary for North Carolina Public Television on positive aging in 1996.
Wow.
And I just did a podcast for Rhode Island Public Television in 2022. So, I mean, it was, I've stayed with these thoughts. I've never strayed from the thought. When I moved back here and I had an opportunity to do my show on network radio, one of the big stations here in this area, I was all excited. And then I found out I was going to have to pay for airtime. And I said, well, I can't do that. And then I thought about it for 2 weeks and called the station back and said, I don't know, but somehow I'm going to do it. And I found sponsors and produced the show myself for 10 years.
Wow.
So I think to answer, and now I'm doing, more things. I'm helping people create their own programs. And I'm also, again, hosting podcasts on my own program. But I think the answer to your question is that when you look at the bottom line, and I found this out recently, of what is the driving force under this? I came up with this very interesting answer that in all these many years I never came up with, and that is that I think as a woman growing up in the 60s, we were not taught to be strong and independent. We were taught to get an education, find a husband, if you want to work, fine, but make sure you're secure.
Right.
So we weren't really taught, and we were also taught, be quiet, say the right thing, don't rock the boat, don't say too much. So that was, and I, was creative. I had these ideas, and I was always kind of being muffled. And I realized later on that what this work does for me, it allows me to have a voice, to interview people like you and interview celebrities and experts. And I'm supposed to use my voice. I'm supposed to ask those provocative questions. I'm supposed to speak out. And it's not only allowed, it's what I'm supposed to do. And I think that has been such a driving force for me, that I can have a voice, use my voice, and through it, grab these amazing messages from these people who really inspire me. I mean, really, for some of them, I finish and I say, what an incredible opportunity to have a front row seat to this kind of thinking that I get to do because I find these people and I interview them.
I
I guess
totally
that's a
understand.
long-winded answer for your
Yeah.
question.
What motivated you to get into the positive living? What was behind
Well,
that?
I think that was the beginning. I mean, my first TV show at that first little cable station was called Positive People.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to show positive role models because I didn't always see them
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I didn't always experience positivity. And I wanted that in my life. There's also a book by Richard Bach, who I also got to interview, called Illusions, and it's a parable. It's very old. It's a little skinny book. And in the parable, there is a phrase, and this is kind of what I've really lived by my whole life. It says, "We teach others what we need to learn most for ourselves."
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've done. When I needed to be a better parent, I taught parenting skills. I could do when I was a guidance counselor. When I needed to be more positive, I interviewed positive people. When I wanted to make sure that I was aging in a positive way, I moved over to the positive aging space.
Hmm. I love that quote. We teach people what we need to learn most ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. That's good. That's a good thing to remember. Good for you. Great.
Thank you.
So somehow I guess there was negativity in your life or whatever, and you felt it was
Yeah.
somehow you just got this impression that you didn't want to be in that energy and you wanted to find more positive energy. Is that kind of how it worked?
I think there was a lot of well-intentioned criticism.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be helpful if it's presented in ways that are encouraging and helpful.
Yeah, constructive. Got it.
But
Good.
when it's not, I think it's damaging. The only other thing I think I would add to this, all of it, is that I'm like everybody else in that I get down, I get anxious, I get scared, I get sad. I mean, I go through what everybody else goes through.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that I don't stay there for a long time. And I'm able to look at what's the opportunity and the obstacle,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's when you don't see the hope, that's when things can start to close in on you. So I think as long as you can keep that ray of hope, that ray of light, and then you find another way. It's made me very resourceful.
You said something just now that really resonated with me, which is everybody can get down. And what you just said, which really resonates with me, you don't like to stay there very long. Yeah, I do know people who are habituated into feeling down, feeling downtrodden, that they can't get out of whatever situation they're in. But it really takes a strength. There's an inner strength you have to kind of poke a hole in that cloud and see that there is sun that can come through and that things can be different from the way they are now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you for sharing that feedback with us, Patricia. It's very inspiring. So we will be back after this message with our final session with Patricia Raskin, and she's going to talk about, or I'm going to ask her about, the kind of podcast training that she does for people who want to get their message out there. She's an expert. She's award-winning. She's, as you've heard, she's been on many different major broadcast media channels, and she can share a little bit more with us for those of you who are interested about how to get started with that and how she can help you do that. We'll be back right after this message.
What happens when people visit your healthcare website? Most visitors spend only a moment or two. If they don't find answers to their questions or problem, they leave without engagement. How would you like to increase both engagement and time on your website so visitors can learn more? Now you can with GoToHealth Media's new AI chatbot assistant. That's right. We're using AI to educate visitors about all the information that's on your website. Did you know that people now expect websites to feature chatbots for convenient interactions? And they prefer chatbots for getting quick answers. And they rate those interactions positively. Meet your favorite new employee. It never sleeps, never gets sick, takes no vacation, and replies to visitor questions promptly. We help train your AI chatbot assistant from the information on your website. We test it to assure it gives the answers you want. And your chatbot can help set up appointments too. The right answers, right on time. free up your staff, save time and money, increase engagement, and gain new clients. GoToHealth Media's new AI chatbot assistant. Learn more today at ai.gotohealthmedia.com.
Here we are again, Jonathan Marks with GoToHealth Media, and we're talking today with Patricia Raskin. She's the host of the Patricia Raskin Show. She's a nationally recognized multimedia radio talk show and podcast host, an award-winning radio producer, business owner, and leader. You can find out more about her at patriciaraskin.com. That's RASKIN, patriciaraskin.com. So Patricia, you train people on how to get their message across, how to build a podcast. Tell us more about those services and what are the keys for success there.
Well, there are 4 parts to having a podcast. And so I teach a course in all 4 parts, and then I do individual training and coaching. And for some, I host their show, and depending upon what people need. But there are 4 parts to this, Jonathan. The first one is the content. What is your content? What is your concept? Why are you doing this? What's your why? What are your topics? Who do you want to target? And what will they gain? Why is this needed? So that's the first part.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little while. Second part is now you've got that down. You've got your topics. Now, how do you deliver that effectively? How do you present it so that it's interesting, it's engaging, that you maintain your listeners? How do you do that? So that's a whole other piece. The third piece is the technology. Now, for some people like myself, I don't do the technology part, so I will have other people do that. But for people like yourself who might want to do the technology, then it's learning how to use your computer to then record and edit and then promote your podcasts online. Okay. And then the fourth piece is the marketing. Because when you're on a network station, which I've been on for years, you don't have to promote as much. Today you do, but not as much because people will find you because they're listening to the station.
Mm-hmm.
That's not so in podcasts, unless you're very well known, you're a celebrity, and then they're just going to go to you anyway. So you need to let people know. And so that's promotion. It's
Mm-hmm.
marketing, it's social media, it's newsletters, it's blogs, it's talks, it's getting the message out there. So those are really the 4 components: the concept and the content, the delivery, the technical part, the production part,
Mm-hmm.
and then the marketing piece and promoting the piece.
Promotion. How long have you been doing this? Have you had a lot of students that have had success?
Well, I've been doing media work forever.
Yes.
But I think in the last few years since podcasts, podcast is a radio show. It's just online. Seems
Right.
like old radio. Look at what we did in the 30s. It's the same thing, because now the difference between the podcast and the radio show is that you can really tell your story in any length you want. You don't have FCC regulations. You don't have commercials. You can put them in, but you can be very creative. And I've taught several classes, and I've worked with several people, or, more than several, who have had their own podcasts. Some of them already have it, and I've helped them improve it. For some, I've done the interviewing, and for some, I've just helped them with concept creation.
So people can learn more at patriciaraskin.com. And when people take the training with you, if they go through those 4 pieces, what kind of time commitment is that?
Well, it depends. I often will run the course through an organization. And so if you're interested, people can sign up for the organization, and sometimes they can get the course at no cost. Again, I do it in 4 pieces, and I usually find an organization to run it through, whether it's a chamber or whether it's Center for Women in Enterprise. Sometimes the state will run programs,
Mm-hmm.
and they are, they're looking for content, and they will provide it to businesses at
Mm-hmm.
no cost or low cost. So there are different ways to deliver it.
Got it.
And I have some of them on my website that people can watch.
Good. So we've been talking with Patricia Raskin. She is the host of the Patricia Raskin Show. She does a lot of interviews. She's interviewed over 5,000 guests. She focuses on positive living, and in these days on positive aging, which we've been talking about today. And Patricia is also a very talented teacher and counselor, and teaches people how to have a popular and successful podcast. Patricia, thanks so much for being with us today. It's been great having you.
It's been great to be here, Jonathan. Thanks for the great questions.
Sure, my pleasure. Everybody, we'll see you again next time. Thanks so much for being with us today. This is Jonathan Marks with GoToHealth Media. Have a great week. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in this week to GoToHealth Media. Be sure to join Jonathan Marks and another health expert next time. You can also catch the program on your favorite podcast platform. Until our next show, be sure to visit us on the web at gotohealthmedia.com and elevate your life.